Hi everyone, welcome to week 1 of English 101 Online. So this video is just going to give you a quick introduction to the writing process, what we're going to do in our course, and then get you started on Essay 1. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we kind of jump into our work for the course and this first essay that we're going to start with, I wanted to talk a little bit about what rhetoric and composition means. So I talked a little bit about this in my course tour, but if you didn't get a chance to watch it or don't remember, rhetoric and composition really focuses on writing, reading, and thinking. Those three things are what we're going to talk about in our course. Rhetoric is formally the art of persuasion, so it deals with knowing who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and how you're going to persuade your audience to really believe what you're saying. And then composition is how you piece something together. Like think of a piece of music as a composition or a composition writing notebook. So literally how you arrange your ideas in written form. So that's what our course is going to really focus on. So within rhetoric, we're going to talk about things like analysis and breaking down ideas of other writers to kind of see how they put their ideas together. But the ultimate goal of our course is to help you become more confident as a writer and more sort of focused in your ability to understand college level writing assignments. So for that end, our course is going to really focus on something called the writing process. So some of you may have talked about this in a previous class or maybe in high school, but if you need a little refresher, the writing process is literally just what we call the steps that you take when you write something, be it an essay, an email, a text message even, although you kind of do this more in your head. So we are going to go through this process over and over and over again. And sometimes even within this process, you might repeat steps or skip them depending on how you approach writing. So really, the writing process typically starts with pre-writing, understanding your assignment, and kind of gathering ideas, figuring out what you're going to write. Then it goes on to drafting, which is just getting your thoughts on paper. Revision is really the most important step of this process. It's where you sort of look at what you've written and ask yourself, okay, how can I re-see what I've done and really make it better? And then after that, editing, proofreading, that's where you get into the more the nitty-gritty grammar, sentence structure, punctuation. You know, it's everybody's favorite. And then finally, you want to kind of get feedback, which is where I come in, or sort of revise again. So what I want to kind of emphasize with this process, though, is that it's not linear, and some of you may be better at different parts than others. So it's possible that you do really well in the drafting stage, but you kind of struggle with the punctuation and proofreading. Or maybe you're super good at pre-writing, but actually getting your thoughts on paper in a draft is where you struggle. So really, this class is going to help you just kind of develop more comfortability with this process. And what I do want to encourage you all to do is have at least some form of pre-writing. So that's what your readings are going to talk about a little bit this week. So pre-writing is literally before you start drafting, you want to kind of get your ideas organized in some way. You can do this by making a list, a mind map, you can try a free write, you can do an outline. We're going to try a couple different ways to do that. But you want to have some kind of idea of what your point is in what you're going to write before you start. So this week, what we're going to do is kind of two things. We're going to get introduced to the class, and then you're going to start working on Essay 1. So the first thing you want to do is kind of look over our syllabus, our course guide, the Brightspace course, and then take the syllabus quiz. It's about 10 questions. Should be super easy. Just my way of kind of being like, hey, are you in the course? And then you want to post to our Reflection 0. This is an introduction to each other and kind of a little bit for yourself. So that's what you want to do first. Those two things I'd love for you to do by Wednesday of week 1. This is sort of also my attendance for our course to know that you're here and you're participating and you're able to access Brightspace. Then you're going to do some reading. We have a couple things this week. You Writing is an online free textbook that I use. So you'll want to read a section from page 9 to 36, which sort of talks about the writing process and just kind of getting comfortable in there. Then an article called What Does the Professor Want? And a video called Looks Aren't Everything. These are really going to help to kind of give you context for what we're doing in the course this week. Then you're going to review Essay 1 materials and complete Reflection number 1. which is a little bit of pre-writing for our first essay. So let's talk about those reflections. Reflections are going to be typically every Friday of our course, not every week, but most weeks. So these are usually related to readings that we have. The assignment sheet is on Brightspace for this, but the two big things are that I want you to kind of write complete thoughts, a couple paragraphs, be thorough and thoughtful. Don't worry so much about, how perfect your writing is. This is really just kind of a space for us to get ideas out there. Don't be afraid to incorporate examples, quotes, references to our course readings. That kind of gives me the idea that you're actually doing the reading and that you're kind of applying those. And then every week, you do want to make sure that you reply to 2 classmates' reflections. So in your response to them, questions are great if you want to kind of offer agreement or disagreement, or kind of say, hey, I had a similar idea, or maybe you could try this. What I don't want is for you just to respond to a reflection and be like, nice job. Cool. Thanks. Those kind of responses are really just what I call phone it in. And I want you guys to actually sort of try and create some conversation in this discussion space. So I'll also be commenting on your reflections, and hopefully we can kind of get some good rapport going there. All right, now let's talk about essay 1. So I'm changing this essay up a little bit this semester, so I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm calling this a definition. So the assignment sheet is on Blackboard, but essentially I've given you the overall question of who am I? And you want to answer this in your essay 1. So there are a list of guiding prompts that you can choose from. I won't always give you prompts like this, but I thought for this first essay we might use this little jumping off point. So choose a guiding prompt, and then use specifics from your life to support your answer to that prompt. This is a narrative essay, so it's essentially storytelling with a purpose. And in that, you want to think about who your audience is for this. I know sometimes we're like, oh, my audience is my teacher or my classmates. And that can be true, but also say you're writing about yourself, this first prompt, who you are in a few words, and you want to talk about how you've always been perceived as a jock. Maybe your audience then are people who also play sports or have been perceived as a jock themselves. This can kind of give your writing a little bit more persuasion, a little bit more specifics. So this is what we're starting. We're going to work on essay 1 from week 1 to week 4. All right, so don't feel like you have to start your draft yet. You can, but we're going to kind of work through this together as we go. All right, the most important part of this first essay is a thesis statement. So you probably have heard about thesis statements before. I know we put a lot of pressure on these in written work, but it's essentially what is the overall idea that you're trying to communicate in your writing. Typically, I like thesis statements to have 2 things, your topic and so what. Why does it matter? Often we're really good at giving our topic, like, oh, I'm writing about how I'm always perceived as a jock. And then people stop there. And they forget that they kind of have to give their reader a so what. This is usually at the end of your introduction, but not always. So reflection number 1 this week will help you write your thesis statement. Oh, excuse me. And your readings this week also talk about it. So, for example, this is a thesis statement about the story Huckleberry Finn. And it starts with a question, partly why I gave you some questions in your assignment. Why is the Mississippi River so important to Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn? And this person responded, the river comes to symbolize both division and progress, as it separates our characters and country, while still providing the best chances for Huck and blah, blah, blah. So what I want you guys to get from this example is that a good way to think about your thesis statement is ask yourself, okay, what's my overall question? Who am I? That guiding prompt. And then just answer it. Answer that question. There's your thesis. And we'll work on these, like I said, in reflection 1, and I'll give you guys some feedback, and I'd like you guys to give each other feedback as well. So for example, if I were doing this essay, one of the prompts talked about an object that might describe who you are as a person. And I thought about this for a minute, and I was like, you know what? I think that my glasses actually define a lot of who I am. I literally use them to see the world, but also I think that when people see me and they see my glasses, they think immediately of a librarian, a nerd, someone who reads a lot, who's not good at sports. These are all things that people might assume about me because I wear glasses. And I could write about how that may not always be true. Alternately, one of the prompts asked about a event that might have changed your life. And I have a thesis here that says the car accident I was in taught me not only how resilient I am, but also how fragile. I have a newfound understanding of my own mortality. So both of these have a topic. That first one, my glasses, and the so what? Why do they matter? All right, so those are the two things that you want in your thesis. The other thing I wanted to point out while we're working this semester is that it's really important for you to keep track of your writing. I can't tell you how many times I have someone email me and say, oh, well, I don't know where I saved my draft. I can't access it. I can't open it. I thought I submitted it, but I didn't. It's your responsibility to keep track of your work, okay? So the best way to do that is to probably use a cloud service like Google Drive. You do also have access to OneDrive with your student email. When you log into your student email, you'll see this sort of, all these buttons to the left-hand side. One of them, I think it's this little blue one right here, is Word Online. So you do have access to Microsoft Office Suite, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all of that for free as a SWIC student. I really encourage you to use those. So if you use OneDrive or Google Drive, Google Docs, whatever it is you use, just make sure that you keep track of your writing. All right? That's all I've got for this week, guys. I am really excited to meet you all via Brightspace, and I will see you soon.